Our first guest sold over 75 million albums and was at the top of her game. Then her world came crashing down when she endured a very public and betrayal and divorce. Now she's put it all in her new book. From this moment on, please welcome Shania Twain.
For decades, Shania Twain carried secrets that weighed heavier than any crown. Behind the glittering stage presence and record-breaking albums, whispers followed her everywhere. People speculated about her troubled childhood, her mysterious health battles, and the scandal that nearly destroyed her. She smiled through it all, never confirming what everyone suspected. But at 60, everything changed. In recent candid interviews, Shania finally broke her silence, revealing truths more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. The confession her fans waited years to hear has finally arrived, and the reality of what she endured is both shocking and inspiring. At 60 years old, Shania Twain sat down and spoke the words millions had been waiting to hear. For years, journalists asked careful questions. Fans whispered in online forums. Industry insiders shared knowing glances. But Shania stayed silent, protecting herself behind carefully crafted public statements and polished performances. The speculation grew with every passing year. Was her childhood really as dark as the rumors suggested? Did her health problems truly threaten to end her career forever? And what actually happened in that marriage that shocked the world? Then came the moment of truth. In a series of deeply personal interviews throughout 2024 and 2025, Shania finally opened up. She confirmed that yes, her stepfather did abuse her. Yes, she did suffer from severe Lyme disease that damaged her vocal cords, possibly ending her singing career. And yes, her husband's affair with her best friend was every bit as devastating as the tabloids reported. But more than just confirming rumors, Shania revealed details that painted a far more complex and painful picture than anyone had imagined. She spoke about wearing multiple bras as a child to hide her developing body from her abusive stepfather. She described the terror of performing in bars at age 8 while drunk men grabbed at her. She talked about the moment she discovered her husband's betrayal and how it nearly destroyed her will to live. Most powerfully, she revealed how Lyme disease stole her voice at the height of her fame, forcing her to undergo experimental surgery while fully awake. The confession wasn't just about validating rumors, it was about reclaiming her narrative. For too long, others had told her story in fragments and speculation. Now, at 60, with nothing left to prove and nothing left to lose, Shania decided it was time to tell the truth herself. The woman who once hid behind stage makeup and carefully chosen words was finally ready to be seen, scars and all. Throughout her entire career, Shania Twain perfected the art of hiding. Every red carpet appearance, every award show speech, every magazine cover showed a confident woman who seemed to have conquered the world. Her signature leopard print, her fearless stage presence, her empowering lyrics about female independence all suggested someone who had always been strong. But behind that carefully constructed image lay decades of unprocessed trauma that threatened to destroy her from the inside out. From her earliest performances as a child, Shania learned that showing vulnerability was dangerous. When she sang in bars at night, she couldn't let the drunk patrons see her fear. When she went home to violence and hunger, she couldn't let teachers or neighbors see the bruises or the emptiness in her stomach. When her mother pushed her relentlessly toward stardom, she couldn't express exhaustion or doubt. Survival meant smiling through the pain, and that pattern became the foundation of her public persona. Even as her star rose in the 1990s, the mask never came off. While recording The Woman in Me, she was already experiencing symptoms of Lyme disease, but told no one. During the Come On Over era, when she became the best-selling female country artist of all time, she was privately battling memories of childhood abuse that therapy was just beginning to uncover. When she stood on stages in front of 20,000 fans, she was simultaneously fighting panic attacks so severe she considered quitting music forever. The pressure to maintain that perfect image became its own form of prison. Fans loved the strong, confident Shania. The industry needed the reliable, professional Shania. Her family depended on the successful, wealthy Shania. Who was she to complain about trauma from decades ago? Who was she to admit weakness when millions looked up to her? So she kept smiling, kept performing, kept pretending everything was fine, even as her body and mind screamed for help that wouldn't come for years. Shania Twain was born Eileen Regina Edwards on August 28, 1965, in Windsor, Ontario. Her early childhood was marked by instability from the start. When she was just 2 years old, her parents divorced, and her mother, Sharon, struggled to raise her daughters alone. Then Jerry Twain entered their lives, an Ojibwa man who married Sharon and adopted the girls, giving them his last name. The family moved to Timmins, a remote mining town in northern Ontario where temperatures could drop to -30 degrees Celsius and isolation bred darkness. Life in Timmins was a daily battle against poverty and violence. The family lived in a small house that frequently lost electricity. Heat was a luxury they couldn't always afford. Shania often went to school hungry, ashamed to admit to teachers that there wasn't enough food at home. Meals consisted of hunted moose, caught fish, and sometimes just bread with mustard. They moved constantly, sometimes 3 times a year, running from unpaid bills and landlords demanding rent they couldn't pay. But poverty was the least of young Eileen's problems. Behind closed doors, Jerry Twain transformed into a monster. He beat Sharon regularly, sometimes so severely that Shania feared her mother would die. At just 10 years old, Shania witnessed Jerry push Sharon's head into a toilet and believed she was watching her mother's murder. When she tried to intervene by hitting Jerry with a chair, he punched her in the face. Police visited the house multiple times, but nothing changed. Then came an even darker horror. Jerry began sexually abusing Shania. To protect herself, she started wearing multiple bras and layers of clothing, trying to make her developing body disappear. She felt responsible somehow for his attention. The abuse continued for years, creating trauma that would haunt her well into adulthood. This was not just a difficult childhood. This was systematic torture disguised as family life in a place too remote for anyone to notice or care. While most 8-year-olds were tucked safely in bed by 9 o'clock, Shania Twain was performing in smoky bars past midnight, trying to help her family survive. Sharon, her mother, had discovered Shania's exceptional singing voice and saw it as their ticket out of poverty. She began dragging her daughter to talent shows and eventually convinced bar owners to let the child perform. The venues were dangerous places for a young girl. Drunk men leered at her. Some tried to grab her. She learned to sing while dodging unwanted hands and inappropriate comments. Despite the horror of those circumstances, something remarkable happened in those bars. Shania developed an unusual stage presence and vocal control that seemed far beyond her years. She wasn't just singing, she was surviving, and that desperation gave her performances an intensity that captivated audiences. By age 10, she was writing her own songs, including one called "Mama, Won't You Come Out to Play," about her mother's depression. Music became both her prison and her escape. The family earned about $20 per show, money that sometimes meant the difference between eating and starving. Shania performed hundreds of shows throughout her childhood, building skills and resilience that would later define her career. When she wasn't performing, she was chopping wood, caring for her younger siblings, and trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy at school. Sleep was a luxury she rarely experienced. Then in November 1987, everything changed in the worst possible way. Shania was 22 when she received the devastating news that her mother and stepfather had died in a head-on collision with a logging truck. The grief was complicated, relief mixed with sorrow mixed with guilt, but there was no time to process any of it. Shania immediately became the legal guardian of her 3 younger siblings, Mark, Carrie Ann, and Daryl. Her dreams of a music career in Nashville were put on hold indefinitely as she took a job singing at the Deerhurst Resort in Huntsville, Ontario, where she would spend the next 5 years performing every night while raising 3 children essentially alone. In 1993, when Shania was 28, a legendary rock producer named Robert John "Mutt" Lang heard her music and called her out of nowhere. He had produced massive hits for Def Leppard, AC/DC, and Bryan Adams. He told her he believed in her voice, that he could help her become a star. They began working together, and within weeks, the professional relationship turned romantic. Just 6 months after meeting, they married in December 1993. Together, they created "The Woman in Me," the album that would change country music forever. For years, their marriage seemed like a fairy tale. Mutt was intensely private, preferring to stay behind the scenes while Shania conquered stages worldwide. In 2001, they had a son, Ija, Shania scaled back her career to focus on motherhood, and they built a life in Switzerland, away from the pressures of fame. From the outside, they appeared to be the perfect couple. Behind closed doors, Mutt was pulling away, becoming distant and cold in ways Shania couldn't understand. Then, in 2008, Shania's world exploded. She discovered that Mutt was having an affair with her best friend, Marie-Anne Thiebaud. Marie-Anne was married to Frédéric Thiebaud, and the two couples had been close for years, vacationing together, sharing intimate moments, building what Shania thought was genuine friendship. The betrayal was so layered, so complete, that it felt like violence. It wasn't just losing a husband, it was losing her best friend, her sense of reality, her ability to trust her own judgment. The divorce was finalized in 2010. The tabloids had a field day with the scandal, but few people understood the depth of Shania's devastation. She had already survived childhood abuse, poverty, and the loss of her parents. She had already been battling Lyme disease for 5 years without knowing it. Now this, the betrayal triggered memories of every time she had been hurt, every time she had trusted someone only to be broken. She fell into a depression so severe that she couldn't function for months. In 2003, at the absolute peak of her career, something terrifying began happening to Shania's voice. She was 48 and riding horses at her property in Switzerland when a tick bit her, transmitting Lyme disease. At first, the symptoms were subtle. Her voice would crack unexpectedly during practice. She would feel dizzy without warning. But as months passed, the symptoms became impossible to ignore. She would black out for milliseconds every 30 seconds. Her vocal cords stopped responding the way they should. Notes she had hit thousands of times suddenly became impossible. Lyme disease is a bacterial infection transmitted by ticks, and when left untreated, it can cause devastating neurological damage. The bacteria had attacked the nerves controlling Shania's vocal cords, causing a condition called dysphonia. For someone whose entire identity and livelihood depended on singing, this wasn't just a health crisis. It was an existential catastrophe. She couldn't sing loudly. She couldn't hold notes. She couldn't even speak normally without her voice cutting out. For years, Shania saw specialist after specialist, desperate for answers. Doctors struggled to diagnose the problem because her symptoms were so unusual. She was told it might be psychological, that perhaps the stress of fame had finally broken her. She knew that wasn't true. She could feel something physically wrong, but without a proper diagnosis, treatment was impossible. By the time doctors finally identified the Lyme disease, permanent damage had already occurred. The disease didn't just affect her voice. She experienced chronic pain, fatigue so extreme she could barely get out of bed, and cognitive problems that made it difficult to think clearly. On stage, she had to fight through episodes where she would lose her balance or forget lyrics mid-song. The woman who had once commanded stadiums with effortless power now struggled to complete a single performance. The worst part was the fear that she would never sing again, that the voice that had saved her as a child, that had built her empire, was gone forever. While the world knew about Shania's divorce and her struggle with Lyme disease, few people understood just how close she came to dying. In 2020, when she was 55 years old, Shania contracted COVID-19, and because of her compromised immune system from years of Lyme disease and her pre-existing asthma, the virus nearly killed her. She developed severe pneumonia. Her lungs filled with fluid every single day. Her antibody count dropped to nearly 0, leaving her with almost no immune defenses. The situation deteriorated so rapidly that she had to be airlifted by a specialized medical team for emergency treatment. For 12 days, she underwent plasma therapy, a treatment typically reserved for the most critical cases. At one point, she flatlined. Doctors didn't tell her at the time how close she came to needing a respirator, perhaps knowing that the psychological impact might hinder her recovery. She later learned that medical staff had prepared her family for the possibility that she might not survive. But COVID was just the latest in a series of life-threatening battles. The Lyme disease diagnosis had come only after years of mysterious symptoms that doctors couldn't explain. The experimental vocal cord surgery she underwent in 2018 carried significant risks. She was awake during the entire procedure, which required surgeons to insert Gore-Tex supports into her throat while she sang, ensuring they could monitor what was happening in real time. One wrong move could have left her permanently mute or caused severe complications. Perhaps even more dangerous than the physical threats was the depression that followed her 2008 divorce. Shania has spoken openly about considering suicide during that period, when the combination of betrayal, health problems, and unresolved childhood trauma became too much to bear. She entered intensive therapy and started medications, but the darkness was profound. For someone who had survived so much, the fact that heartbreak nearly succeeded where violence and disease had failed speaks to the power of emotional pain. Only through years of treatment and support did she pull herself back from that edge. The story of Shania's recovery reads like something from fiction, complete with an ironic twist that seems almost too perfect to be real. Remember Frédéric Thiebaud, the husband of Marie-Anne, the woman who had the affair with Shania's husband Mutt? As Shania and Frédéric both processed their spouse's betrayal, they began spending time together, initially just supporting each other through the devastation. They understood each other's pain in a way no one else could. They had both been betrayed by the people they trusted most, and that shared trauma created an unusual bond. Gradually, friendship turned into something deeper. On January 1st, 2011, Shania married Frédéric in an intimate ceremony in Puerto Rico. The tabloids had a field day with the symmetry of it all, calling it everything from a revenge marriage to a rebound relationship. But Shania insisted it was genuine love, born from mutual understanding. Frédéric had helped her remember that not everyone would hurt her, that trust was still possible, that her judgment wasn't fundamentally broken. He stood by her through the vocal cord surgery, through the COVID crisis, through panic attacks and stage fright, and every moment when she doubted whether she could continue. Beyond finding new love, Shania also underwent a profound psychological rebirth. In 2011, she published her autobiography, From This Moment On, which became a New York Times bestseller. Writing the book forced her to confront every painful moment of her past, from childhood abuse to recent betrayal. It was therapeutic, but agonizing. She worked with trauma specialists who helped her understand that the abuse she suffered wasn't her fault, that the patterns of shame and hiding she had developed were survival mechanisms, not character flaws. She also returned to performing, though it required completely reimagining her relationship with her voice. After the 2018 surgery, her voice was deeper, less flexible than before. She had to relearn everything, essentially becoming a different singer than the one who had topped charts in the 1990s. It was humbling and terrifying, but also liberating. She was no longer trying to be the perfect version of herself. In February 2023, at age 57, Shania released Queen of Me, an album that represented her most fearless artistic statement. The title itself was a declaration of independence from every expectation others had placed on her throughout her life. The songs addressed aging, menopause, self-acceptance, and the freedom that comes from surviving everything life can throw at you. Tracks like Waking Up Dreaming and Giddy Up were infused with joy that felt earned rather than manufactured. But the album's most talked-about element was its cover art, for which Shania posed topless, covered only by strategic positioning and lighting. At 57, in an industry that typically discards women over 40, this was a revolutionary act. Shania explained that posing nude was her way of conquering the trauma that had made her hide her body since childhood. The stepfather who had abused her had taught her that her body was shameful, something to be covered and hidden. By posing confidently, she was reclaiming ownership of herself. The Queen of Me tour that followed from April 2023 to November 2024 became the highest-grossing tour of her career, earning over $114 million and proving that her connection with fans was stronger than ever. She performed 75 shows across North America and Europe, incorporating aerial stunts and elaborate costume changes that would exhaust performers half her age. Yet she maintained that the most challenging part wasn't the physical demands, but the emotional vulnerability required to perform songs drawn directly from her trauma. During interviews promoting the album and tour, Shania spoke with unprecedented openness about her journey. She discussed menopause publicly, breaking taboos around women's aging bodies. She talked about the confidence that comes from realizing you've already survived the worst and nothing can hurt you anymore. She encouraged other women, particularly those over 50, to reject society's message that their best years are behind them. The transformation wasn't just personal, It was political. By living authentically and loudly, she gave permission for others to do the same. At 60, Shania Twain has stopped protecting people from uncomfortable truths. In recent interviews throughout 2024 and 2025, she has spoken with startling directness about aspects of her story she had previously only hinted at. She confirmed that her stepfather, Jerry Twain, sexually abused her from around age 10 until she left home, describing the specific tactics she used to protect herself, including wearing multiple bras and baggy clothing. She talked about the shame that made her feel responsible for his actions, a burden she carried into adulthood. She also revealed the full extent of her Lyme disease symptoms, including the terrifying fact that for years she experienced micro-blackouts every 30 seconds, effectively losing consciousness hundreds of times per hour. She described the experimental nature of her 2018 vocal cord surgery, admitting that doctors couldn't guarantee it would work and that there was a real possibility she would be left permanently worse off. She spoke candidly about her near-death experience with COVID-19 in 2020, including the fact that she flatlined and required plasma therapy that was essentially a last-ditch effort to save her life. Most powerfully, Shania revealed the depth of her depression following the 2008 betrayal by her husband and best friend. She admitted that she had contemplated suicide, that the combination of heartbreak and unresolved childhood trauma created a darkness she didn't think she could escape. She talked about the years of intensive therapy required to process abuse she had buried for decades, and how her mother's death in 1987 had prevented her from ever getting answers or closure about why Sharon had failed to protect her children. The truth Shania reveals isn't just about confirming rumors or shocking revelations. It's about showing the full reality of survival. She wants people to understand that strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means choosing to rebuild even when staying broken feels easier. After 6 decades of performing for others, she's finally performing for herself. Shania Twain's story could have ended a dozen different ways. She could have died from her stepfather's abuse, from poverty and hunger, from the car crash that killed her parents, from Lyme disease, from betrayal's despair, from COVID-19. Instead, at 60, she stands as proof that survival is possible even when it seems impossible. Her decision to finally confirm the rumors and reveal her full truth isn't weakness. It's the ultimate act of strength. By sharing her darkest moments, she lights the way for others still trapped in their own darkness. The rumors are confirmed. The truth is known. And somehow, miraculously, she's still here.